Welcome to this nice fall day. Can you hear me okay?
Could be a little bit louder.
Yeah. A little bit louder? Yep. Okay, let me make the adjustment.
It rained today, so we don't have to worry about it. That's better too. Right, days shorter, colder. But it's supposed to warm up next week. I don't know. I haven't checked.
All right, welcome to Coffee with the Mayor. Thank you again for being here today. My clicker's not working, so I'm going to use my mouse to advance the slides. So, the first slide I have today is for the detour. This was switched over yesterday. So phase 2 of the East Side Highway 51 DOT project is completed. So you can see that things are progressing to here. There's a changeover. They're working on this next final phase, which will go until mid-November. Hopefully the weather holds up. If it gets too cold, that could create challenges for paving. One of the challenges they've been having is they're replacing the retaining wall on the corner of 5th Street there across from the Opera House. And they've run into some struggles there, and hopefully they'll get them rectified. So probably find out early next week what their plan of action is. They have to drill a bunch of holes and put some supports in there. There's some utilities in there that are conflicting. So people that are a lot smarter than me are working on that. But you can see we still have kind of a truck detour going south of the city to try to avoid the semis coming on Main Street. But for the most part, you can get from here just about to the Opera House. But there's plenty of parking, and we all need exercise. So from the Opera House to the coffee cup or anywhere down there, certainly there's a place to park and you can find your way there. Are there any questions about this?
Is anything happening with Smith there? The Smith Foundation?
They're still working on the depot building.
Yeah.
So they are working with the contractor, and some of the work they're doing on the outside of the building, windows and doors, they're actually manufacturing them in a warehouse.
Oh, wow.
And then when they're ready, they're going to bring them out and install them.
So they're actively working?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They've been working on the inside as well. And then also they've been collaborating with the Landmarks Commission for the exterior features of the building to make sure everything meets the historical preservation standards.
Cool.
So, yep, they're still moving along, trying to acquire more buildings. And then these are all the other projects that we have going on. So we just talked a little bit about the 51 project. The DOT is also doing a project on 4th Street. So that one should be done hopefully by the end of the month. That one's going south, kind of out toward Ocker Road and Taylor Lane out there, going toward the new development where the substation is. That one was a grant-funded opportunity that we took advantage of. And then the ones kind of up by Sand Hill School and Yahara area, Lincoln and Wilson, those projects are getting completed. Van Buren's done. Roosevelt and Eisenhower are done. And then there's a couple of them, Christensen Way and Mellum. These are two projects that we're doing the majority of the work in-house. If you remember last year at budget time, one of the things that we talked about was purchasing a machine that grinds up the asphalt. So those two projects are projects that we're using this machine on. So we basically take a backhoe and push this machine through, it grinds up. We scoop up the asphalt, throw it in a dump truck, haul it away. We reuse it on another project later. We grade the road, and then we have the pavers come in and do the final paving, which saves us money and allows us to get our projects done. And we typically do those on the smaller roads, and we let the guys with the bigger equipment do the bigger projects on the longer roads. And then at Man Park, they're still doing some work down there along the riverbank. They should be down there on Monday. There were some DNR permits we needed in order to put in some of the the nodes that are gonna be like picnic areas, or you can launch kayaks or canoes down there, including EDA, kayak and canoe launchers. So those will be starting again on Monday. All the permits are in order now. There's equipment down there. There's some flotations in the water. They call those dewatering devices. So they have to drain down the river in some of the locations in order to do those amenities. So that's moving along. And then if you've been down by the gazebo or the fire station, you'll notice that they scooped out that pond that was there with all the cattails, and that was a wet pond, and they're converting that to a biobasin, which is basically a dry pond. So the water will drain there, and then the vegetation in there will help evaporate the water that collects in there. So it'll look nicer, it'll be safer. Hopefully we'll gain a little bit more room down there. And that's a project that we're mostly doing in-house as well. These are fairly hot off the press, and they're very preliminary. This is for next summer, what we can expect on the west side of Stoughton. So they're going to be going from South Harrison Street all the way out to Quam Drive, and there's several different phases. And they're going to be putting in new features like turn lanes. Some of the lanes, I think some of the areas, they'll go from maybe a 2-lane to a 4-lane. We're going to clean up the stoplights at Jackson Street over where it goes over toward car dealerships. So we're going to be doing right in, right out there, and just some other, pavement improvements. So the first stage, they anticipate March, weather permitting, through April. They'll do some staging, and they'll do some temporary pavement, and it looks like what they're trying to do as much as they can is leave all the roads would remain open during the construction. There's going to be maybe some times a little bit at night here and there where they have to close them to put in culverts, but for the most part they're going to try to at least keep the traffic flowing out there. Phase 2 would start in April, and same kind of stretch there. You can kind of see where some of the details, and you can find this all on the DOT's website. Eventually it'll be on the city's website when it's finalized, but these are just really preliminary ideas. And then there's going to be some areas where the road's going to be closed at Rutland Dunn because they're going to be putting a roundabout there, as well as a roundabout at Highway B. So we're working with emergency management, we're working with developers, we're working with the DOT to try to make sure as we coordinate things that traffic can still flow, and if there's an emergency, we can still get to the places efficiently. And as I mentioned, Rutland Dunn Town Line Road, there will be some improvements there. Where it's going to get tricky is out by where Stoke Trailers is when they put that roundabout in, because basically from Rutland Dunn Town Line Road or Greenspire all the way out to B is basically going to be closed for a certain portion of time. And what we're trying to do is get an access road connected on B, kind of behind Sandhill School where the new apartments are going to go. And we're trying to get the Stars to align on that one right now. And then if we can't, we're going to at least put in some temporary features so we can get ambulances and fire trucks in there in case somebody gets hurt on a construction site. And then these are just kind of the remaining steps that they're going to do. Stage 4 will take us right into November, so it's going to be an all-summer project. And there's going to be, like I mentioned earlier, some left turn lanes. You might remember in the one section up here, they're going to do that middle turn lane, the twiddle they call that. So right now it's 4 lanes, they're going to go down to 3, but the middle lane will be left turn only. They're hoping that will keep the traffic flowing quicker. We'll have new signals, so hopefully the signals will be have more features, just like the ones on the east side will, with arrows, and they'll be timed differently and placed a little bit better. So that's what's going to be going on next summer, so it's going to be another big project. We still don't know when they're going to do the downtown portion of Main Street. It's programmed for 2029. If the funding is there sooner, they could move that up a year or two. The engineering will be completed ahead of time, so if the funding's there, they'll do it. But at this point, we really don't know. I'm fine with 2029. We know it's gonna be a big disruption for the businesses that are down here. Some of them have already felt it, even with the east side construction. I believe our Public Works Department, working with the business owners in the chamber, have done a really nice job putting together local detours, but it's still hard to navigate, and that changes pretty quickly. Sometimes, like last week, we got notified at like 3:30 in the afternoon that they were gonna make a change starting at 7 in the morning. That's how quickly things can change, so we send out emails, we put it on our website, we go out and we change the signs as soon as we can to try to keep up with it. Any questions about the construction? Sure.
Yeah, I'm curious about you said the new roundabout that's going to be going in. The one at B and 51 does not have proper signage for speed reduction for the roundabout. Is that handled by the Wisconsin DOT, or is it county, or I'm assuming county or state, because I'd like to give them a call? Okay.
It's the state. I think they'll be making some adjustments when they do the roundabouts. Where we can control it on the state highway is areas that they call connecting highway.
Yeah.
So connecting highway, what the DOT does, they have this formula, and they'll pay us to do maintenance on certain areas of the state highway. So for example, on the east side, our connecting highway, I think it goes to Chalet Drive maybe. And then they pay us, I don't know, I'm gonna say $25,000 a year to plow it and to maintain it. On the west side, our connecting highway, I believe, goes to, I think it's to Roby, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. And not only do we maintain it, but it gives us more control as far as the speed limit.
Yeah.
So I anticipate that once the roundabout is completed, they'll approach us about having a connecting highway all the way to B. We may or may not accept that. It depends on, hopefully they update their formula and give us more money.
Yeah.
But if they do, then if we're not satisfied with the speed limit they put there, we may have the ability to adjust it ourselves at that point.
Well, there should be a posted advisory speed approaching all roundabouts. When I moved here 3 years ago, they didn't have any that came up over here. I called and said, hey, who do I talk to? And at that point in time, it was not local, it was the state. So I contacted them. They had them up within 24 hours.
Oh.
But the stretch between Hull and the next roundabout heading west, there should be something between those, and there isn't. And you know it's a drag race, so
Sure.
anyway.
Okay.
I'm just trying to help.
And if you need a contact for the DOT, you can let myself know, or you can reach out to our Public Works Director, Javier.
Yes.
We have direct lines to the people, and he would know better than I would the individual to send that off to.
Yeah. Sometimes it helps when the local citizens call and say, hey, you're supposed to have signs. And I knew it wasn't you guys. I know it's,
Yeah.
either
But we do
county or
work with
state.
them. It's something that we can mention at our next meeting too.
Cool, thanks.
But, so the next thing we're working on is our budget right now, which is always a fun time of the year, especially if you're a finance director. I don't think they sleep during the month of September and October and a little bit of November. So our budget, the way it works is we start out with a zero-based budget, which means we can tax through property taxes based on what we spent last year. That's where we start. The way that changes is based on our net new construction, which is basically our growth. Our growth could be a commercial building, it could be a residential building. So there's a formula on the net new construction, and it's part of what they call the equalized aid. But basically what happens is when we grow, we add more value to our community, and the theory is if you're on a zero-based budget, you're still pretty much taxing everybody about the same, but it's spread out throughout more taxpayers. This is the state of Wisconsin's theory. I don't happen to agree that it fulfills all of our needs, but those are the rules we live under. So under the net new construction in 2026, we grew our total property value, or equalized value, at 3.8%. 5.8%, which is a record year. That's the second year in a row we've had record growth, 3 out of the last 4 years. And you've seen it, you know, a lot of new homes, some apartments going up, commercial buildings. We anticipate that'll continue into next year. So next year, for example, the Stoughton Trailers building will be complete, so that'll be on the tax roll. We just completed an apartment in July, that'll be fully on the tax roll. All the new homes will be on the tax roll. The car washes, they're putting one up on the west side and another one up on the east side. Those will be on the tax rolls. Anytime Fitness is putting up a building out across from Kettle Park Senior Living, 4-unit strip mall. So all those properties will be on the tax roll. So we anticipate that next year we'll have another good year. Will it be a record? I don't know. So the way that works is we can tax for another $298,000 based on that net of construction. So that's what we have to do to cover basically our rising costs, which is our biggest cost is our personnel. So if we want to give people a raise, which we do, we want to keep our good people working here. And then the health insurance is another big one. The health insurance premiums have been going up about 10% a year, so we're looking at options right now to hopefully reduce that. And then there's also what they call an expense restraint program, which is another thing that complicates things. So what that is, it's about $294,000, so about $300,000 a year. So what that is if you're a low spending municipality, which Stoughton has been ever since this has been put into place in 2010, we can use that $294,000. So combined, we have about $592,000 that we can spend, which is good news for Stoughton because we've had a lot of growth, so that means we need more people. So in our budget, we've put in some requests for some additional staffing. So we have 2 positions at Public Works. One of them is what we call a street or machine operator. So they would do street maintenance, snow plowing, they cut trees, they do all sorts of things. And then another one would be a similar position, but it would be in the Park and Recreation Department. So they do some of these in-house projects that I mentioned. In the parks, they do some trails. They just did one down at Lowell Park by the community garden. They cut in a trail going back to the new development at Magnolia Springs. They did that in-house. They also mow lawns, cut trees, working on the pond over there by the gazebo. We're also looking for that person in Public Works to have some expertise in the horticulture field. So one of the things that we've been doing quite a bit recently is in our parks, especially around our stormwater ponds, is putting native vegetation grasses in there because it's better for the environment. It looks nice, it makes the trails beautiful. It also takes a lot of maintenance. We do have some volunteers that help us maintain them, but quite honestly, we don't have enough volunteers to keep up with the increasing needs that we have out there. So we're looking to hire somebody that has some expertise that can identify, you know, what's a native species and what's an invasive species or a weed, so we know how to treat them or pull them or burn them or whatever needs to be done in order to maintain these prairie grasses. We're also looking at hiring another part-time person at the library. So the library business is really back up at least to or beyond where they were before the pandemic, which is good news. Especially right now, we're seeing a lot of people coming into the library for job searching and resources because things are tight right now. Things are getting really expensive, so people utilize the library as a resource center. They may not have a computer at home, so they go there and use our equipment there, and we have to have somebody that can help work them through those computers and get to the area that they need to get the answers. We're also looking at hiring somebody in our planning department. With all the growth, there's been a lot of pressure on the planning department. I spent a lot of time working with them. And one of the things they've identified last year was we really don't have a good mapping system. So they do electronic mapping. And we use this for many things. They call it GIS. So right now, what we've done to fill the gap is we had some federal money from the pandemic, so we hired 2 interns to do some mapping to try to at least get us caught up. And the types of projects they've been working on, for example, is they do heat maps. So a heat map is a map with a lot of dots on it, and it'll show you things like where do people that utilize the food pantry live. So if we were to move the food pantry someday, where would be a logical place to put it where people could get there, hopefully walk or bike there to get their goods. Someday we may build a new fire station. We've been doing a study for police, fire, and EMS to try to get them all in one building. So if we were to do that, where do our volunteers live, and where are our calls for fire and EMS, so where's a logical place to put a new building? We also use the GIS to do inventory. So we have a list of all our trees, where they're located, what species they are, how old they are, things like that. So we can put them on a trimming schedule and a replacement schedule when it's time to replace trees. We also inventory our sidewalks, our stormwater ponds, pretty much anything, equipment, we can do that. So we're looking at that position to be a full-time position beginning next year. So we have money in the budget to do that. We also use it for our planning, for our comprehensive plan, which we've been working on. Hopefully all of you have filled out the survey. If not, I think I might have a slide in here on that at the end. So they gather information, they put it in the system. That way, when we go to find something, we can find it. So it creates efficiencies with the system. And Stoughton Utilities has had a position like that for years. They're going more to another type of system, but they still have some needs for their inventory of their sewer and water pipes and the electrical systems and things like that. There's actually our electric power provider, I learned, WPPI, they actually have 2 people that are doing GIS, and what they're doing literally is they're flying drones and they're inventorying all the power lines, and not only the power lines, but what's on them. Because in utilities, if, let's say, Spectrum has a line on there, or AT&T has a line on there, they actually have to pay Stoughton Utilities to be on that power pole. So some communities are using WPPI's drones to inventory to make sure that they have an accurate number so they're billing correctly. So the GIS person can be used for many things, and most municipalities that are our size or bigger already have one, so we're happy to be able to fund that position. So putting this all together, what we're looking at right now is, this is kind of the type of spreadsheet we use, and it kind of compares last year to this year, and it shows how much we can increase it by, and then we put all that together and we have to have a balanced budget. And when we do that, I mentioned earlier our equalized values, all of our property values. You can see our property values went up 9.5%, and then our mill rate is actually going to drop, which means potentially, now this hasn't been approved yet, but potentially the mill rate for the city portion is going to drop. But that doesn't mean your taxes are going to drop, because you still have your increased cost of the value of your home. So I don't know if we have a bottom line yet, but we will probably in the next couple of weeks, because we're required to post it in the paper before we have our budget meeting, which is coming up toward the end of the month. So the finance director is going to work on that day and night. So we think altogether right now we're projecting about a 4.3% increase in the taxes for the city portion. That could change, but that's our estimate right now based on what we know. There's still some things that trickle in, like for example, last week our state transportation aid came in. So our transportation aid, what they do is the state has a formula. So when we redo our roads, they use a 6-year average of what we spend, and then based on that, the state gives us money back to help cover the cost of some of those road repairs. So it doesn't make sense for us to do less roads, because that's less money we would get from the state to help support that work. So those numbers kind of keep trickling in toward the end here, but for the most part, we have the majority, so we should be hopefully around that, give or take a little bit. So that's kind of how the budget works. Some other things that are in the budget is the shared ride taxi. The shared ride taxi has really gone up and down the last few years, and a lot of that has to do with they've at times have had trouble staffing it. But we're hoping that, you know, they're in a better place right now. They've actually raised their wages. They were at $11 an hour at the beginning of the year, and now they're at 15. So right now, we're not proposing any increase in those rates. I think it's, was it four and a quarter maybe for a trip for the shared ride right now. So the other things that we looked at is, so this expense restraint program that I mentioned earlier, usually we take advantage of that to help our operations budget. What we're planning on doing this year is using that in our capital budget, because that's going to allow us to use more of that net new construction money that we have. So the money will still be used, but it'll be used in the capital budget instead of, that's the budget where we borrow for bigger things, so it's going to reduce our borrowing. That way we can use the full amount of that record new net new construction that we received. And I know it's really confusing, but the finance people have this all figured out, so I'm just a messenger here, but it's good news for us. And then last year we actually had to use some fund balance in order to balance our budget. We will not have to do that this year, so I'm pleased about that too. Other things that are on your tax bill is the garbage and recycling. So by contract, if John's, who does a great job for us, if they go above a 2.8% increase for their contract, we have the opportunity to bid it out. So we work with them. They were slightly above that. They had something on there where they had some insurance that we made them, that we required them to have. That was an additional cost. We found out that there was no need for us to do that. I don't know how that started. So we looked into that, and by eliminating that, they were able to get back down to that 2.8%. So basically, your garbage fee will go up $5.35 next year. So that's good news. And all these things go through the various committees, the finance committee, and then eventually city council at the budget meeting. Another area is our EMS. So our EMS is funded separately from your property taxes. We call it an enterprise fund. So the EMS is budgeted and funded through the rates we collect from the people that we serve, or, you know, basically the patients or their insurance companies. So what makes it challenging for EMS, especially right now, we're not getting paid from the federal government right now because they're not operating. But our EMS cost per run is about, it's over $500. Between Medicaid and Medicare, we only get reimbursed $400 and some. So every time we have a Medicaid or Medicare cost, we lose money. So what we're doing is we're looking at our two things right now. We're looking at, one is our rate fee. And no matter what we raise it to, it's not going to help us with Medicaid, Medicare, because they're only going to pay us what the federal government feels like they're going to pay us. But for the insurance companies or people that are paying out of pocket, their rates are going to go up, and that's what helps make up the difference. And 73% of our calls are Medicaid or Medicare. So it's a big chunk. So we're looking at raising our fees. We have to get that approved. That'll be going to finance committee, I think, next week. And then the other thing we're looking at doing is changing our pay structure. So right now, if you're a volunteer, I'm just going to use an average because there's different pays based on if you're a driver or whatever level of EMT you are. Most of ours are EMT advanced. We don't have paramedics here, so we have EMT, basic EMT and EMT advanced. But basically, when we get a call, jump in the ambulance, as soon as you leave the driveway and get on the 4th Street, whoever's in the vehicle, it's usually 2 or 3, they each get $30 as a volunteer. And what we're finding is we're having a difficult time recruiting and retaining volunteers because our volunteer pool has changed over the years. It used to be many of our volunteers were downtown business owners. Call came in, they put a sign on the door, be back in an hour, they'd run down to the EMS, they'd go take care of the call, they'd go back to their shop, open up, wait for the next call. We don't have as much of that anymore. We do have some people that work in Stoughton, and their employers are nice enough to let them take off for the calls within reason. But many of our EMTs are UW Med students, so they're driving up from Madison. And what we're learning is the $30 per call isn't necessarily enough to satisfy them, because they may have one day where they get 10 calls, and they may have another day where they don't get any. So we're looking at shifting and going from an hourly rate. And we have a fancy spreadsheet with everybody on it that would show that if we go to an hourly rate and raise the amount in the budget for personnel, we can make sure that they can earn more and they'll have guaranteed income, because that's what they want. They don't want to run down here and spend maybe 12 or 24 hours sleeping overnight and not get a call and not get any money. At least this way they know they're going to get paid an hourly rate. Now, the rate is still lower than some of our surrounding communities, but a lot of the students do like to come and work in Stoughton because our call volume is higher than our neighboring communities. We do over 2,000 calls a year. So, and a lot of them are, I think they call them adrenaline junkies, because they like the excitement and, they get a rush out of helping people and saving people's lives. So they do like to come and work in Stoughton. They just need to be compensated in a way where it at least pays for the gas to come down here and go back. So that's something that is an ongoing conversation that we're having as well. We think we can do that and still have a balanced budget for that enterprise fund. Some of our neighboring communities use property tax levy for it. If we were going to go to do that, we would basically probably have to go to referendum to create enough money to do that. And I've been working for the last 8 years to do everything I can to prevent from going to a referendum. Many communities around us have done that. Madison, I think Oregon, Fitchburg's failed. Sun Prairie's going to referendum in April. Middleton went to referendum. Fort Atkinson. So we're starting to see a lot of the municipalities going to referendum, just like school districts. And to what end? Because we don't want to tax people out of their homes, but yeah, we still want to be able to provide the services. So those are the balances and the things that we're trying to work on internally in order to make sure when somebody needs help, we're there, but we're in a position we can afford to pay for it. Any questions about any of that? I know that budget stuff can really get in the weeds.
Just a point on the EMS stuff. It would seem to me from a budget perspective, it makes a lot more sense to pay them hourly anyway, because then it's a predictable cost. If you're just paying somebody every time that they get into the ambulance, you don't know what that's going to be, so you can't really predict your budget that accurately.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is. And there's just a few things we have to work through, that complicates things, like if some of the EMTs might work in other municipalities, and then when they reach a certain threshold of hours, now they're eligible for benefits and retirement and things like that. So those are all the other things that we have to factor into it. But the predictability is good. We know we're going to have a high call volume, but we don't know if it's going to be 1,800 or 2,200. It's going to be somewhere in that range. So having an hourly, there's only so many hours in a day, and you basically have 3 ideally on per crew. We're trying to get more backup crews. That's the other goal here, because we get a lot of back-to-back calls. And if we don't have enough volunteers, what happens is they might come from McFarland or Oregon or even Edgerton for mutual aid backup, but the response times aren't as good as they are if we have people right here in Stoughton, especially if they're at the station. So that's the other thing we're trying to do with that, is to have more backup. Our neighboring communities have been awesome to support us the last few years. It's a big lift for them to do that. Some of them have paid full-time people, so they have the ability to do that. We tend to give them a lot of mutual aid on fire. We have a pretty robust fire department. So it kind of evens itself out, but, you know, if you're an EMT from Oregon, I'm sure, you know, running up Stoughton all the time isn't the thing that you really always plan on, but they've been very gracious about it. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious if, obviously not violating privacy, but has it been looked at, are there patterns in what types of calls that they're being called on? Are they falls? Are they, you know, those kinds of things?
Yeah, they do. We get reports from, we have to enter everything, as you can imagine, and then we can generate reports from the EMS. Some reports we can get from the county, especially the fire reports. We do have a lot of lift assists, and oftentimes, you know, 3 people might not even be enough, so hell, the fire department go out for backup as well, because some of the lift assists, you know, people that are heavier than I am, and it takes a lot of people. We don't want our volunteers or our full-time people getting hurt, lifting people, and we're looking at, you know, different equipment as well to help with that. So, and you know, if you're in a second story of a home and you fall, to get somebody downstairs and in the ambulance is a lot of work. So we do get a lot of calls like that. That's kind of the number one thing. And then we have a lot of assisted livings. Not all of them are staffed and able to handle if somebody falls in their facility. So, you know, we're looking at options there too. I mean, we could potentially charge impact fees for that, but then they're gonna just raise that cost onto their consumer. So those are all conversations that we're having. But yeah, we do track that, and it's a typical thing. We do get a lot of calls. If anybody use the Pulse Point app on your phone, yeah, you can download that. It's called Pulse Point, and every time we get a 911 dispatch for fire or EMS, it'll show up on there, and you'll see there's a lot of places that we go to frequently. Most of them are on Jackson Street. And there's one on Lincoln. We get calls there daily. You know, Scotland, we get calls there too. I mean, you know, we're here to help people. But yeah, we do have an aging population, so our call volume is higher than our neighboring communities. But we're glad, you know, to be there to help them. And you know, the fire provides good support when they can, whether it's an accident scene or a lift assist. Any other questions on the budget or EMS or any of that? All right, I'll move on to the developments. You might have heard or read, or I might have told you before, we're under contract with Alexander and Company. This is down on the riverfront, and this would be phase 1, which would be 2 buildings. So about 120 units, 60 per building. And so to get under contract, there's a few different things. One is to purchase the land. 2 is to enter into developers agreement, so we know who's putting in the road, who's paying for it, what the expectation and timeline is for the developer. There's a tax incremental financing agreement, so in order to make this project happen, the city is basically paying for some of the public improvements, so the road, the stormwater pond, any of the debt that we've created over the years, from purchasing the buildings to demolition of the buildings to the contamination on the site from things that happened, you know, years ago, in order to make this site shovel ready. So we have a tax incremental financing agreement in place, and really where we're at is Alexander is applying for a WSTO Section 42 tax credit. So the state has a program where, and the federal government has a program where you can apply for a tax credit that goes to the developer, and it's based on median household income is the rent that the people who live there would pay. So the developer gets the tax credit, and then based on the formula, they can charge the subsidized rent. So it makes it more affordable. Now, they're still going to be expensive because everything's expensive right now, but the city doesn't set those rates. The only other program that's out there that would probably be more cost effective for some people would be Section 8 housing. And the Section 8 housing is a little bit different. The Section 42 is based on the median area income. The Section 8 is based on individual income. So if you're one that's below the median income, you'd probably want to do a Section 8. Problem is there's no vouchers available. They had a waiting list. The waiting list is closed because there's so many people on it, and nobody's building them right now. Everybody, the developers, it's more advantageous for them to build Section 42. They're more profitable, there's less paperwork, less bureaucracy, so that's what they're building right now, which really puts people that need a Section 8 voucher in a bad way. Especially when we have places like Rosewood, who was a Section 8, and typically these programs are for 30 years, and after 30 years, the hope is they'll renew those programs, but in that particular case, owner passed away, family sold the building, new owner did not want to go through that process, so they went to what we call market rate. So everybody there that had their rent subsidized all of a sudden had to pay market rate, and many of them got displaced, and it caused a lot of stress. And I know Cindy's been working with as many families as she can to help them, but there's only so much we can do because there's a housing shortage. So this will help. We have other projects that we're hoping will come online next year as well, but I mean, even once the Section 42 is approved, which will be, I believe, May, it'll still take them a year to build it. So we're looking at 2027 on this particular one, and we have the needs now. So we're trying to get more going in the pipeline so we can get caught up. And this is kind of what it'll look like. They tried to put some of the Scandinavian look in with the roof lines and the colors. So that project's in a pretty good place. The next one is Stone Trailers. Did anybody go to the open house? Yeah, pretty impressive what they did there.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, did a really nice job. It's exciting, the governor was here and everything, pretty awesome. And so their building is complete, they're moved in, and then they're working on this project over here. This is Authentics, the company is doing it as Continental. They have a similar project in Cottage Grove. So they're looking at 12 buildings here, and we're trying to get some things wrapped up to hopefully get that project started, maybe even this year yet, or spring for sure. And then they would build it out in phases. So that would be about 310-ish market rate apartments. The rent on those apartments will be a little bit less than the ones that are down here, the 51, the two buildings that are down here. But you know, everything's expensive right now, but at least there's options. And that's what we try to do, is create as many opportunities at different price points as we can, whether it's Section 42, multifamily, single family, condos, duplexes. We try to get a variety of different price points, so hopefully people can find one that suits their needs and fits their budget, which is really challenging right now because the cost of everything is still high, and interest rates are still high, uncertainty with tariffs, things like that all contribute to the rising costs. Land costs are extremely high right now. On the new regulations that are put in place, we designed these for 200-year flood, so you can see all the ponds here. You know, all these ponds, and they take up space, but we don't want them to be flooded, but it takes up space, which is less opportunity for them to build. So, you know, the land is money too, and that's really not usable land for homes, but it's going to protect them from getting flooded. So that apartment would be the next phase. We're working on some of these roads. These yellow would be single-family homes. Some of these are already staked out, so hopefully they'll be marketing them. I think they have some signs at their open house showing what they are. Be some duplexes up here, and then the red would be commercial, and the purple is kind of unknown. It could be commercial, it could be more multifamily. This one here, I think that you're looking at a small multifamily or duplexes there. So that's going to be done in phases. So the first phase was the headquarters. I think we're in phase 2A, which is the apartments, and then we'll be transitioning to phase 2B here in probably the spring. And then the trail system will run through there and come out up by the school. You can kind of see where the trail comes through here, and it'll connect down, and it'll go under the underpass when they do the highway. Next year, there'll be an underpass to get you on this other side of 51 safely. So there's a lot of things going on there. This is what their headquarters looks like. This is what the apartments looks like. I've shown this here before. 312 is what they projected, and they'll have amenities like a swimming pool, a dog area, community gardens, things like that. So it should be pretty nice. Having multiple buildings, it makes it feel more like a neighborhood. So I think that people that live there will enjoy that. There's a clubhouse. Oops. So I mentioned earlier, we were doing some work in-house down at the gazebo. Sun was really bright that day. Sorry about the picture. Everybody said I was a photographer. But you can see, you know, where they kind of clean things out of there. They put in some additional pipes. And then this is just another angle of it. So this is one of our, you know, one of our busiest parks in the summer. You know, they'll get 300 to 500 people down there on a Thursday night. And during the Catfish Music Fest, I think they've had at least 1,000 people down there at times. So this thing has really gotten to be a really important part of our community. This is kind of what's going on downtown there across the street. The wall, they're kind of working on behind there in the construction zone. There's another angle there, kind of gives you an idea where they're at. This is kind of the last phase. So we're hoping the people that are working on the wall will get caught up to the people that are working on the road. They're putting in all new water and sewer lines while they're doing this project as well, and trying to maintain, you know, this, at least one sidewalk being open so we can get to these businesses down here. Scotland Home, this is the area where the old car wash was on the east side, the old Badger Wash. So they've got that cleaned up now, and they're going to be putting in a couple more kind of twin homes down in Scotland, similar to the other ones that are down there. I know there's a waiting list. I don't know how long it is right now, but
It's 3 years.
297.
200
people.
and 3 to 4 years.
wow. Yeah. So I don't think this is going to solve that problem, but it's going to at least help a few people.
Yeah.
But it's encouraging that we're able to, we had to rezone this in order to make it work because it was commercial, now it's going to be housing. So, you know, we try to be reasonable and flexible in order to do things that just make common sense. This is near the chalet where the billboards are. This is where we're going to put the new Badger Car Wash. So they're down there getting ready to form it out and put some cement in there now. And this was kind of a race to the finish line because they came to us last minute when the DOT had already been working on the road, and we wanted to get new pipes into the road before they put the new pavement on it. And somehow they managed to do that, and it was a lot of scrambling with the DOT and Stone Utilities to get that done. Yes?
Quick question, the Badger Car Wash, is that gonna be from the previous owners of the Badger Car Wash, or is that a new company?
I think it's new ownership. There might be some local ties there, but I don't know who's actually going to be the operator.
Okay,
And
so
I think there's going to be like a couple of what we call automatic car washes. You pull in, the thing goes around you, whatever, and then some self-serve bays and a bunch of vacuums. So,
it's not gonna be a Mr. Splash, is it?
no, that's going to be on the other side of town.
The other side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But, so, I mean, it's kind of exciting. We have 2 projects on the east side right now. It's been kind of a long time coming. We'd like to see more going on. But at least, you know, as you enter the city on that side, there'll be a couple of new buildings there. So I think that's good news for us. This arcade just opened on the east side, if any of you are gamers. But it's like old school stuff. I mean, there's machines there that are older than I am. Pinball machines, if you like pinball especially. So Ryan is the operator there, and he fixes them and sells them. And then also,
Where did this go on? I'm
this
sorry.
is where the pet store was.
Oh, okay.
On the east side.
Gosh.
And it laid out really nicely. We were in there last week for ribbon cutting, and I couldn't believe how nice it is. So it's like you go in there, you pay like $15, and you can stay all day and play everything for free. So if you like to play Pac-Man, or you like to do pinball or whatever, there's a bowling game, there's a shuffleboard, and all sorts of stuff in there too. So he's only been open, I don't know, maybe a week. And then this one here just popped up last night, I saw. So this Jeff, I don't know the guy, but he fixes, builds, and does guitar lessons. And he's gonna be opening at 356 East Main Street, which I believe was like the tattoo place across from the Opera House.
Okay.
So I think he's been, I don't know where his shop has been, at home or where he's been doing it.
Over by Pizza Pit.
Oh, he's been up there?
I think there was something like that in there.
Okay. So this is exciting. So I think like today might be his first day. I didn't even know he was working on it. And next thing I know, I saw this on social media and I'm like, oh, just copy and paste it. You know, but good for him. I think that's awesome. So I'm looking forward to meet him and see what he does down there. So that's another new business.
That's fun.
I don't have the bagel shop in here, but they opened up Sunday, the one next to the Legion. I think I showed that slide at the last. Yeah, so they've been working hard to get that place ready. They've got decals on the windows now, and they've been over there every day this week because I drive right by there every day. So it looks like they're about ready to roll. So Sunday's their first day. And then I always like to remind people the Music Appreciation Series is going on. I know some of you frequent that. I saw you there one day, Ruth.
I was there.
Huh?
Yeah.
That was when they had all the horns there, the brass
Yeah,
band.
The brass.
It was really good, and wouldn't you know, I was there for about 10 minutes and then I had to leave. But at least I got to see him. It was pretty impressive. I forget how many people are on stage that day.
24. I counted them. There was the low brass ensemble.
24.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, it was
And they were
pretty powerful.
students, a lot of them, and some of them directed, and some of them had written, added to the music and changed the music. I mean, it was really impressive.
Yeah. I snuck in the balcony and you were in your seat
Yeah.
that you always sit in, right?
No. No, just for brass. I didn't want that in my face.
So yeah, if you haven't gone to that, it's on Monday afternoons at 3 o'clock. It's free. They will accept donations. They have UW students, they have Stone High School students. They bring in people from everywhere.
All
really.
over, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great program that John Boyle puts together. And that's all I had. Are there any questions about anything else?
I have a question about Cooper's Causeway, where it meets Ridge Street, that this summer they were kind of clearing all the mess around there.
Yeah.
What's going to happen there? What is that all about?
So the area you're talking to used to be, there's a building there that was the
Yeah.
IKI building.
Okay.
So they basically,
Steve called it the old creamery, they used to call it.
yeah, it used to be a creamery back in the day.
Okay.
And then IKI was a producer of WD-40. So they would basically, there's a tank there,
Yeah.
and they would fill up WD-40 and into the cans that you would buy at the store.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a newer facility in Edgerton, so they moved their operation down there. And they sold that property. And they sold it to the folks that purchased the former lumber yard down by the railroad tracks.
Oh, okay.
And they're the ones that have been clearing out the trees, because people were dumping stuff there, and they thought that a lot of the trees were falling anyway, and they wanted to clean it up and make it so it was more visible. There was some vandalism to the building even while it was empty for a while. I'm not really sure what their long-term plans are there. As part of that whole transaction, the city worked with the new owners in order to do some land swap. So where you go in the driveway, there was kind of a road that went past the tank through the woods down towards Cooper's Causeway that they really wanted. And it wasn't of any value to us. So we basically traded them that land for land down by the road so we can put either a sidewalk or extend the sidewalk or put a trail in down there on Ridge Street towards Cooper's Causeway, because a lot of people walk down there or bike down there and we want to get them off the road. As well as there's some wetlands that are across the street there by the river.
Right.
So, and the wetland can't really be developed, so it was of no value to them. So as part of that deal, they gave us that wetland too. We think we might be able to cut in a trail there someday to connect it kind of over by Scotland and the hospital. I'm not sure when that'll be, but that's kind of what's going on down there. But as far as what their long-term plans are, I mean, when they purchased the property, they just indicated for now they just wanted to get it cleaned up. But I don't know at what point, you know, they're gonna want to utilize the rest of that land there.
Right now, with the construction and everything, there's quite a lot more traffic going along Cooper's Causeway. And there has been, the brush has not been cleared around that curve, and I kind of worry sometimes that
Oh.
you can't see anybody coming until
Sure.
you get way close. And this is not under the bridge, it's approaching it.
So is it on the, like the Luke Stoughton house side, or is it on the back side?
It's on the Luke Stoughton house side.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll take a look.
as you
and-
go from Ridge Street down.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that and snap a picture and
Yeah.
send it out to Public Works, and they'll let me know if that's something that we would maintain or if we need to notify the property owner.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Plus, I think that, what is it, the 28th, Tim, is the next rush pickup,
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah, it'll be a brush pickup this month, and then, let's see, that might be the last one of the year until we pick up the Christmas trees, which will be into next year. So, yeah, if you have brush, put it out. Other than that, I'm hoping to get, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, I mean, finish what you're saying.
I was just gonna say, I'm trying to get, we have a new utilities director, and he's been here for 2 weeks now, and he's actually taking his water certification license today, otherwise he would have been here, so I'm hoping to bring him at the next meeting so you could all meet him.
Excellent.
And see what his, kind of his vision is. Maybe by next month, he'll have a better understanding of where he wants to go with Stoughton Utilities. But yeah, he's been here for a couple weeks, came from Sun Prairie, worked in the wastewater division there. His name is Adam Scheichter. And, we're really excited about him and the things that he can do at utilities. We do need to do upgrades at the utilities wastewater plant. We do have plans for a new building for Stoughton Utilities. So you might recall, I think I've mentioned here that the current Stoughton Utilities building, we have interest from Yahara Bay Distillery to purchase that building and move their operation here, probably be 2 to 3 years. So we've hired a firm to do a building feasibility and designing study. And I just signed the contract day before yesterday. And they've done a couple walkthroughs to understand what the needs are for the utilities office and then for all their equipment, their vehicles. And then we'll be looking at land selection options and then trying to get to the point sometime next year where we're committed and we can start constructing this new Stoughton Utilities building. So that's going on as well. So we'll hear from Adam. Hopefully by then we'll be able to give you an update on where we are as far as site selection. So that's going on. Any other question?
Yeah, I just want to comment again about senior housing. I live at Rosewood. It is a crisis. As far as right now, there's about 35 empty apartments, and they're bringing in people, multi-generational is what I'm going to say. And those of us that have been there for a while, I think are feeling very threatened, and, we've lost that comfort zone of our family. And the owners are from Brookfield. They don't care. They truly don't care. And when I go out to look at other apartments, there is really nothing. I don't qualify for income restricted. I'm just a little bit above. So of course I don't qualify for Section 8. And then you're getting into the 2,000 plus rents, to get a decent housing. And what I tell people is, like, my income is not going to increase. I'm flatlined. And so, I don't know, I think there is a crisis in Stoughton. People are moving out of Stoughton from Rosewood, going to other communities that offer more. So, like I said, right now, I know of 35 vacant apartments that people are gonna be moving into. And, you know, I keep saying I'm open to other people of different ages, but we've already had a few come in and it's already disrupting. So for the people that are already there, the seniors that have been there, that have made it work all those years, it's a crisis. And I know you have said you cannot make any headway with this company as far as making contact. One of my suggestions was take one building and make it over 55 and make it the other one multi-generational. They're not open to here.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. So, I mean, at this point, you know, what we've done is work with as many developers as we can to try to get caught up, which is, like I said, it's going to take a while. You know, Mike and I have been working with the county. We went through the year-long process for a strategic plan for housing, emphasizing on affordable housing. We're trying to implement that plan. We've updated some zoning and a few things. It's going to be challenging for the county because, you know, they're looking at massive cuts in their budget. So any additional help that we were going to have to implement that plan is right now is off the table. We're still hoping we can twist a few elbows, but they have a pretty big deficit that they're making up in their budget. So, you know, we communicate with them. Our state Assemblyperson Udell was in Stoughton last night. That's always a topic of conversation, just as it is when Senator Ratcliffe is here as well. So all the locals in Dane County that represent Stoughton, we all understand and we're all working on those issues. We have really limited ability because, quite frankly, we don't have control at the state level and nobody's in control at the federal level that can help us. So a lot of the programs that we rely on are being affected by decisions that are outside of what we can do here locally. The good news is for us locally, there's still some things that we can do, and we're working as hard as we can to address them. But I know we're not going to be able to address them as quickly as the needs are coming to us. And that's a great example. We got a report yesterday. We got a monthly report from Dane County, and right now on new building permits, we've pulled 76 already this year, which is ahead of last year's record pace. In Dane County, Madison had the most. They had over, I think, like 131. And then Oregon and Stoughton had 76. We were second out of all the municipalities in Dane County for new housing starts. So I feel like we're getting some quantity and there's some quality mixed in there, but unfortunately, there's not really enough of the programs that would help people like you right now. We have the one on the riverfront. We have another one that is kind of in limbo right now out on 51 West. So we're waiting to see, you know, who blinks on that deal. So we thought that one was going to go through next year. Now we're not certain. But if not, we're going to find somebody else to develop that one. And there's a lot of need and it's a lot of competition. And quite honestly, for some of the developers, they're more worried about their bottom line than they are about helping people like you. And that's really unfortunate. That's part of the problem in this country. Go ahead.
After World War II, the government, federal government, created the Veterans Home Program. Have you guys ever thought about, as an individual city, building some buildings that were senior housing? The city becomes the developer instead of relying on these greedy private developers. Is
Yeah.
it feasible?
I mean, it's feasible. There's some communities that are doing that, but those typically are communities that developers aren't willing to do anything. The River Haven, the one on the river that I mentioned, I can't remember the percent, but a big chunk of those veterans get priority down there. That's part of their business plan with the Alexander Group. So that's something that I think that Jordan is one of our city council members that he's gonna help champion for the veterans that need housing.
They need housing, but is it gonna be at 1,500 a month or 2,000 a month? It's not gonna be subsidized.
It'll be section 42, so it's based on
Yeah.
65% median household income, so there'll be some folks that will qualify. Will everybody? Probably not, but that covers people that fall into that category. It could be school teachers, it could be firefighters, it could be, you know, it could be all sorts of people. But we haven't really gotten into the development business. Quite honestly, it's something that I wouldn't have a problem doing, but quite frankly, we just don't have the capacity to do that. You know, it takes more people. Even with hiring more people, we wouldn't have enough to be able to get that to the finish line. Although sometimes I think it'd be easier if we did it ourselves than relying on a developer, quite honestly, because there's always challenges involved when you're negotiating with developers. And it would be a lot more streamlined if we just did it ourselves, but you'd have to have somebody with the expertise on staff to do that. Right now, we just really don't have
Quite an
that.
undertaking. Yeah.
But we're also working, I went to a seminar on, today's Friday, must have been Tuesday maybe, in Madison. No, it was Wednesday in Madison on land trust. So that's another thing. Mike and I have met with people in the county on land trust, and they had an organization that does it in Michigan presenting there. And what that would be is basically there are some properties that the city owns, and then the city would work out a deal where we release the land to the land trust, and then the land trust works on building out the homes. They're basically nonprofits, so they work out a program for people to move into homes. And the ones in Michigan, at least, the purchase prices are like half of what the market rate would be. And then they have things in place, so if they sell them, they get a portion back, but then the next person can basically buy them at the same price with a little inflationary put in. So when you sell the home, you can't buy it at a subsidized, say it's $200,000 and sell it for $400,000. You can only sell it for a maximum percentage above what you paid for it. So it's a different type of program.
Yeah.
So, and the county did put some money in the budget for that program. So we've had one meeting in Stoughton. We're hoping to set up another one where we can talk specific properties to see if that's an opportunity to do that type of housing. We did update one of our ordinances. Actually, we created a new one, and it's called a pocket neighborhood ordinance. So it's smaller homes, more density, and then common areas where the people that live there, you know, can share resources, whether it's a garden or a space, you know, gazebo, whatever. So it's kind of like their own little neighborhood there, but it's not, you know, a 1,500 or 2,000 square foot home, because not everybody needs that. Certainly not everyone can afford that. So we are having those conversations, as well as last week Habitat for Humanity was down here again. So they're trying to purchase some additional land. The county had some grant money 2 years ago for Habitat. They're building one project on Pine Street right now. They have one other piece of land over off of Stoughton Avenue that is in the pipeline, but they're looking at purchasing more lots as well. And then, so that's, you know, like a sweat equity program. So we are looking at multiple options to try to address it, but it just, you know, it just takes a long time to make these things come to fruition. But we're pushing it, you know, forward on these projects to hopefully get some of them to the finish line.
Thank you.
But anything else? All right, well, thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it. And then we got to figure out who's going to be some guests. I'm going to try to get Adam from utilities. It's getting to be about time where the school will be here again. I'll have to check the schedule with Laura Trotter and then see when the school and the hospital and the chamber are going to be here. But I appreciate you coming out and supporting us. It's important for you to be here. And you know, if there's anything you need, please reach out to me.
Thank you. Thank you.